about other people. And number two, it made me realize that I can make this more real. I can actually consider people and actually put other people first. And by giving this example, it really hints at what Philippians 2:12-13 says, which is, what I'm getting at, friends, is that you should simply keep on doing what we've done from the beginning, which is praying for each other, like we prayed for Jonathan always did. When I was living among you, you lived in a responsive obedience. Now I'm separated from you, keep it up. Better yet, redouble your efforts. Be energetic in your life of salvation, reverent and sensitive before God. That energy is God's energy, and an energy deep within you. God himself willingly working out what will give him the most pleasure. And in saying this, it would be kind of foolish of me to assume that everyone in here is energetic in their life of salvation. And maybe you don't know kind of what's going on. Maybe you don't know Jesus as your personal best friend, as someone who took on their own life, like set their life aside and consider you before God considered himself. Maybe you don't realize that. So I want you to realize that it really points to that in verses 5-8 about how Jesus came to this earth, and Jesus was God, was the highest deity of all time, and took that off, put it aside, and in being God, Jesus became fully human and really required the status of a slave. And he was, even from birth, we know that he had to flee from his country and from the place he was at because people were coming out to kill him. That Jesus took on the worst part of humanity and humbled himself. And he didn't claim special privileges. He lived a selfless, obedient life and then died a selfless, obedient death. And the worst kind of death at that, a crucifixion. And I want you to realize that. And if you haven't realized that before, I do want you to kind of reflect on that and consider that in your heart. And what I want you to do is, if you have, like you either haven't realized that before, that's one stage you could be at, or if you have, and you just have kind of had the phone on selfie mode this whole time, and you haven't turned away from that, I want you to kind of turn away from that for a second and consider other people, and consider that other people are struggling, maybe other people are rejoicing, and we can rejoice with them because this was a happy letter. And maybe other people just need to be motivated. Let's say that they have been looking at other people and have been, concerned about them, but maybe they haven't, maybe they're not motivated, or maybe they need encouragement, just like Paul is encouraging the people in this letter for that. So I want us to stand up, and I want us to grab a partner, and in that, I want us to ask our partners what kind of, where they're at in that. If maybe they don't know Jesus as their personal, Lord, or Jesus as God who loves them and set themselves aside, I want you to ask them if they're ready to make that commitment. And, or you can ask them, like, hey, have you been focusing on yourself? Have you been, where are you at right now? And that person can open up, or maybe you can share that, hey, I feel like I've been selfie mode right now. You can ask them that. And the third thing you can ask them is maybe that you have been doing that, but it's hard, like to do it every day, to consider someone else and not ourselves is not, it seems kind of unnatural sometimes. I always want to think about myself, because I live my world. And so in that, I want you to face your partner, ask them that, and I'm going to give you about 2 to 3 minutes to pray and reflect on that together. And then after about 2 to 3 minutes, we're going to come back, and I'm going to end with one final verse, and then we'll discuss. Pray and go on the next one. So if you would stand up, find a partner super quick, and just ask them one of those 3 questions.
Yeah.
I'm super glad you guys are really participating in this and talking to one another. And as you wrap up your prayers and your discussions, I'm just going to go into our last verse. And right before that, I'm just going to kind of wrap up the main point in this message. So as you prayed with one another, that might have felt supernatural to you. That, not supernatural as in, magical, but as in really natural for you. Maybe that's something you might do often. You might often pray with one another. You might often uplift one another. For some of you, that might feel awkward. That, like, why do we gotta do this right now? I just want to sit here and do nothing. I just want to listen. And the reality is that our walk with Christ and our walk with each other is not one, and God's not asking us to just sit back and just take it as it comes. God is literally asking us to consider one another and to actively do so. So it does take standing up. It does take inquiry from one another. I just kind of wanted you guys to feel that it does take effort, and it's one that's necessary. And I think that's the main point of this message, that we are a community of faith, and we are a community that brings in, that considers one another who are fellow Christians, and also one another who are Christians who believe differently than we do, and one of those who maybe aren't even Christians. But we all love one another, and we all consider one another, and we all turn from our selfie mode into considering one another. So I'm just going to end this with Philippians 2, verses 14 through 16. That says, "Do everything readily and cheerfully, no bickering, no second guessing allowed. Go out into the world uncorrupted, a breath of fresh air in a squalid and polluted society. Provide people with a glimpse of good living and of the living God. Carry the light-giving message into the night, so I'll have good cause to be proud of you on the day of Christ's return. You'll be living proof that I didn't go to all this work for nothing." And just take that with you this week.